Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I first off just want to say thank you to Sans HackFest for letting me give this talk today, and thank you to my three bosses at Aquia, Mascaroni, Sassers, and Hughes for letting me speak here today. Love you guys, really appreciate it. I wanted to give this talk today because currently I work in a purple team role for the federal government, which when they asked for a dedicated purple team was a crazy idea to me too, go figure. But it seems like immediately after I took this role, I saw an entire wave of dedicated purple team roles start being advertised. And I love that so much. I was like, cool, thanks, that's okay. But despite that, when I talk to a lot of purple teamers and when I talk to a lot of stakeholders about what purple teaming is, a lot of them don't understand the role that it plays or the value that it adds to security. And even a lot of purple teamers that I talk to on a consistent basis are constantly asking each other, like, what do you use for metrics? Like, what do you track? How do you prove value? And that is honestly something that I've never encountered. I've never had a problem proving the value of my purple team activities. In fact, originally, when I built it for Zoom, I was working on the red team, and I had to build the purple team program alongside being a red team operator. So I had to prove value very, very quickly, or they wouldn't have given me buy-in to continue to work on it alongside my other duties. So that's something that I want for all purple teams. I want stakeholders and organizations to continue to believe in us and let us to build and scale them. So that is the goal in giving this talk today. Okay, so the plan for today. I'm going to go over what a purple team is at a very high level. This is not my getting started talk where I'm going to go into like the what, the why, and the how of purple teaming. I already gave that talk, and it will be linked in the slide deck after if you are interested and if you're very new to purple teaming. So we're going to kind of go over what it is, and then we're going to get really into the defining success and actually tracking and demonstrating it, as well as some of the results that I like to prove from my purple teams. And for my parting shot, because I always give one, I'm going to build up a little bit of hope and then destroy it for you. So that's coming at the end. So who am I and why do I get to talk about purple things? A lot of you know me because 3.5 years ago, I was an absolute nobody in cybersecurity. I went from working in a marketing role to pen testing into red teaming, and then obviously purple teaming and speaking, which is where I'm at today. But what a lot of people don't know about my pen testing journey is that I've basically been purple teaming since I was pen tester born. And that's because I realized very quickly into my pen testing work that the traditional life cycle of offensive operations is broken. And that happened on a day when I had done 2 pen test assessments. I was an internal pen tester at the time. I'd done 2 assessments 6 months apart. And I realized on the second one and going through the report that the only thing I had to change were the dates. All of my findings persisted. The environment was exactly the same as it had been 6 months earlier. And that broke my heart because I was really excited to hack all the things and find all the problems, and it doesn't seem like anyone else was excited and they weren't getting fixed. So I was like, this is broken. And I didn't feel like my work was adding value to actually help secure my organization. So I came from a Six Sigma background. I wanted to find a way to do it better because just because something has always been done a certain way doesn't mean we need to continue to do it that way. So I basically started purple teaming by myself before I really knew there was a word for it. When I found George and Bryce and everybody else, I was like, oh, you do the thing that I've been doing for like years, which was so fun. But originally when I did start purple teaming, my goal was to do the bulk of the work by myself. I knowingly set off the exploit, do the malicious activity. I have access to the tools to threat hunt myself, find where it is. If I'm not seeing it, why not? What is the problem where the data source isn't feeding certain indicators of compromise or logging certain things, et cetera. So I started doing that myself with the goal of, if I get a sliver of the blue team's time, I want to have the answer, tell them where the problem is, tell them what I recommend they do about it, and hopefully that takes as little of their time as possible so that it actually gets done. Now, of course, I have built purple team programs for many sized organizations, all the way from startups to the federal to FANG size. So I've gotten really good at learning to scale purple team ops beyond just myself. And I don't just do it for my own value now, but for the value that it provides to all the teams that security touches throughout the entire organization. And believe it or not, it's basically all of them. So we're going to get right into it. Again, this isn't the getting starting talk where I'm going to go in depth about what purple team is and how you might start one. I will have that linked for you. But To define it at a very high level, all of us have heard of red and blue teams, and a lot of people think you're just smashing the two of those together and making a purple team. And that's sort of correct, but sort of not. If you've never heard of purple teams or don't know what they are, you're not alone. But what they are is it's a cross-security function basically focused on helping organizations not only find their vulnerabilities, but actively remediate them. So my favorite definition, the one that I came up with, is it's red and blue team members working together collaboratively to actively improve defenses in real time to improve resiliency. That's it. We're all just coming together, work together, break open the books, break down the walls. Let's not just execute catch me if you can style engagements, beat up morale, you'll deliver reported findings. Let's get together and actually fix it together. So rather than like I said, handing off a report of findings to go die in a backlog, which breaks my heart. The crux of being on a red team was always that we didn't have any visibility into remediation, especially working for a very large organization. Everyone has very specifically defined lanes. So when we, the red team, would deliver findings and try to identify trends over time and deliver metrics from our program, stakeholders would ask us, how many of these have persisted? Has it been remediated? If not, when will it be remediated? And we're like, we have no idea. We don't know who the risk owner is. We don't know what the cadence for remediation is. We don't know how else, like what their other priorities are. We just don't have that visibility. So purple teamers empower themselves throughout the full life cycle of remediation. And we help give ourselves that information so we can reduce the likelihood factor of an attack as much as possible. Because again, you can't stop a hack. That will never happen. What you can do is make hacks very, very, very difficult so that the hackers either have to get really creative or they give up and go hunt somewhere else, which is our goal at the end of the day. So purple teaming is not more pen testing for the love. People either think that I'm doing nothing at all on my purple team or that we're just doing more pen testing. And while pen testing is definitely a component of what we do, it is not all that we do. So across all of my purple teams, the operators, the team organization, the methods, the stakeholders, and the objectives have been completely different, and that is all completely unique from pen testing methodology into purple teaming methodology. So how did I become an expert at a not one composition fits all product, or not one composition team for not one size fits all product? Purple teaming is really about meeting the unique needs to the organization. Therefore, the first step should always be to understand, you know what, we're off slide. This is about team composition. This is where we should be. That says 88 and that says 12. That's why. Purple teaming, first and foremost, is about understanding and meeting the needs unique to the organization. So you should always be trying to understand what the desired results are, and then understanding if your program is equipped to meet those needs. So one of the initial things I always do is ask, why do you want a purple team? And I wait to see what they say. A lot of times stakeholders are looking for a pen test or a red team engagement, and that's fine. Sometimes they have no idea what it is. They just think they need one, and that's also fine. But sometimes they are waiting to be told what they need. So I am always there to educate them on what I believe the role of my purple team is, the value we can provide. I say, these are all the things that we're capable of doing. This is how I'm going to do it. If that is something you see value in, if that is something you think meets your needs, then we have a match. But if not, then there's probably another security team or product who can meet those needs. So if the goal of the purple team is to demonstrate resilience or provide relief from ops fatigue, either on the side of the red or blue team, then that is definitely something that purple can do. But if your organization says that they just can't get a pen test for 6 months, or their red team is overloaded, or they have a compliance requirement, those are not entirely things that purple team can do. Purple team assessments don't replace pen tests. Compliance pen tests are very much a thing, and you still very much need those. So these should always be complementary to those things. They do not replace them from a compliance standpoint. Please be very well aware of the limitations of what your program can and can't provide, especially from a GRC and enterprise risk perspective. So next, there are some things I need to know. I need to know at every different organization I go to, who are the stakeholders? What are the tools? What are the current procedures? And from there, I need to understand how how I'm going to structure my team in order to work with what I've got. I've never worked with the same setup twice. So again, it's one of those things where not one size fits all. The type of team that I build, the type of team that I build for a large enterprise like Zoom, where we had very siloed, very specific CTI specific teams, detection engineering teams, enterprise risk teams, SOC analysts, is very different than the type of team I would build for a small SMB with maybe one cybersecurity professional, maybe a pen tester, maybe not, and they do outsource most of their investigative work to like an MSSP. Those are going to be completely different purple team programs. So once you understand what it is they need, and how it is you might start to build your team to address those needs, the next thing to do would be to define the metrics. And one of the things you start doing to define metrics, mean time to detect and mean dwell time are things that we've all heard of before, but they're really not in the purple area of responsibility. They're definitely things that are going to improve. They're definitely things that you're going to see that we're going to guide other teams to over time, but they're really metrics for other teams. So if this was a RACI, we wouldn't really be the R or the A for those two things. So what do we do? In order to figure out what we as Purple do track and what we as Purple can demonstrate, I always go back to my original definition, which is that we're just collaboratively bringing different members of different teams together. We don't emulate adversaries and we don't investigate them on Purple teams. We just bring together the members who might do those things. So one way you can do this is if Purple team operations are implemented much earlier on in the offensive testing lifecycle than they currently are. Recently in a webinar with myself, George Archiles from Scythe, and Dan DeCloss from PexTrack, we recommended that you take the traditional model of progression for offensive testing and flip it a little. Normally, red and purple team are swapped in this. You start red team ops before you start purple teaming ops. Purple teams come out of a breach, or they come when the blue team says, please, 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 we need the red team to stop executing ops for a while, which actually happened on a red team I worked on. The blue team said, give us 2 quarters. You can't execute any ops for 2 quarters, like we need a break. And it was heartbreaking. That was also heartbreaking. So before you're really hiring like these really sophisticated red team operators who are very expensive and very creative people, sometimes it makes sense to start purple teaming first and really make sure that the defenses you've got in place are functioning as intended, and make sure you're cross-educating blue teams on specific unique things they can look for from their specific threat actors. Again, CTI, we don't just want to throw darts at the MITRE matrix and hope that we add value. So we recommend that this is one of the ways you can start proving your purple team's value immediately, is ahead of more sophisticated, like catch me if you can, red team operations. Because if a vulnerability assessment is theorizing, this could be abused. We found this, it could be abused in this perfect storm of a kill chain. A penetration test comes along and says, no, that can definitely be abused, and here's how. The purple team assessment would come in and say, of those things that can be abused, this is how we can most realistically address, alert, block, or mitigate, otherwise put a control on top of that vulnerability. So all we're doing is taking that risk equals likelihood times impact factor, right? The risk of a vulnerability being exploited. We're just trying to take that likelihood factor and bring it down as much as possible. Therefore, the risk goes down. So purple teams literally just try and get people together and say, okay, you see this thing, can you alert on that syntax? Is there a way that we can drive down false positives and bring up the value-added manual investigation? Is there something you can do on top of this? And you discuss together, you work through it together, you educate together. And that's that is one way you can definitely start proving value very quickly. You just ask yourselves, can you block it? If not, can we alert on it and log it? If we're doing that and we can investigate on it, then hopefully the SOC analyst doing the manual investigation has a lot more value added, and it's a much more better use of their time than investigating false positives. And then when we've done enough purple team exercises and we have enough TTPs baselined, we can take all of those things and demonstrate the organization's overall base security posture. I like to do this by throwing it into a heat map, and that is how you demonstrate resilience. So baselining your defenses and knowing definitively, we didn't just stand up the DMZ and we didn't put the WAF in place and we didn't put all these group policies and IAM policies in place, hoping they work as intended. We've confirmed now that they are working 25% as expected, 75% as expected. And when you have those TTPs defined and you're tying them to a TTP and you can use layers, There are layers for basically everything. There are layers for threat actors, software, attacks, kill chains. You can take them, lay them on top of each other, and give yourself a realistic posture on exactly how you stand, not how you think you might stand. That's resilience. Resilience is really just an organization's ability to thwart or bounce back from an attack. Proactively thwart. BTI teams want to work with offensive teams to make sure that we are addressing TTP specific to our threat actors. We're picking our threat actors intelligently. We're addressing their TTPs intelligently. Not everything can be mitigated. Not everything can be fixed, but as much as possible. Reactively, can you identify and recover from an attack? I never assume that we're never going to be attacked. I never assume that we're going to thwart everything out there. We've seen it. People will get creative. People will write the 0 days. The bad thing will happen. When the bad thing does happen, have you talked to more people than just the SOC analysts? Have you talked to BCP teams, the other DFIR teams, security engineering and automation teams, your yellow teams, the CI/CD pipeline teams? These are the teams that can help identify, contain, and eradicate problems when they do arise, because your ability to identify and eliminate that problem quickly is part of your resilience. Never want to hear you say it's not. The reason I believe in this is because my very first CISO ever, Bert Carroll, used to say, you get what you inspect, not what you expect. Again, let's not theorize our posture. Let's confirm it. Let's track it. Let's prove it. And then let's demonstrate it to the other stakeholders. And one of the ways you can do this is with a MITRE heat map. This is my favorite tangible deliverable for a lot of my Purple Team exercises. What you do is you, there are some tools out there. My favorite ones are going to be Attack Navigator and Detect. Although you can definitely write your own. You can use your own Python script if you need to make a custom matrix, which is the route I've gotten into now. And basically you throw them up there, and purple stands for things that we've tested but have no confirmed visibility into. So telemetry is missing. Lighter green, somewhat defended. Darker green, really well defended. Multiple data sources, multiple detections, multiple tools working together, meaning we know we don't just have this alert based on signature. We have this alert 10 different ways, or we have it blocked 5 different ways, which is a great place to be in. You can take this. You can take the layer for a threat actor like APT28. I boiled it down so we don't have all that gray we don't need. You can take the confirmed defenses from a qualitative standpoint that you already have, lay them on top of an adversary, and know definitively how you might realistically stand up to an attack from that adversary. And when you see the gaps there in the purple, that's where you know to focus your next budget for security solution, or your next red team operation for punctuating these gaps and seeing if these really are problems. And you can drive better security because it doesn't get much more value added than this. This is all context determined by your organization, your org threat actors, and their specific TTPs with the tech stack and the detections that you're already working with. That's it. There it is. That's resilience. Some of the intangible deliverables you will get from a purple team are things like improved morale across red and blue teams. That us versus them mentality goes away. The silos on, ooh, the mysterious red teamers who just want assumed breach access so they can cheat goes away. Again, op fatigue on either side. We're executing all these red team ops, nothing is getting fixed. You're executing all these red team ops and we're really tired of being pwned. You get education for defenders. So defenders realistically understand when the red team when the red teamers in the purple team exercise did something malicious, this was how it looked. These were the things they did, and this is how it looked in logs. So next time, you might not pass over that indicator of compromise like you would in the past. You might remember and say, oh, they said if you see this around these things, that together, that's bad. That's a recipe for malicious activity. So you're educating defenders on malicious mindset, which is great. Additionally, you're going to identify the gaps in your current processes. You're going to create new ones and optimize the ones that you've already got. We say if a ticket or alert comes in that we call Bob, well, Bob's not available. Great. Who do you call instead of Bob? We have no idea. You're going to flesh these things out and you're going to improve them, which from an administrative control standpoint, because administrative controls are still controls, helps improve the organization's posture as well. Because again, we attack an org's people, processes, and technology. Additionally, you can demonstrate better governance, regulatory, and compliance and due diligence. These help with things like cybersecurity insurance. If you can't prove due diligence, if you can't pass an audit, they honestly won't insure you. And if they do insure you and you still can't prove these things in the aftermath of a breach, they're not going to save you. They'll say that was negligence. So purple team activities, taking those technical things that red and blue teams do, prove value to business functions of the organization that have nothing to do with technology. That was the hope. I just gave you the hope. But wait, now I'm going to destroy it. Because at the end of the day, even though you might be purple teaming really well and you've been doing purple teaming for a very long time, like me, unfortunately, when it comes to purple teaming, all of us out there doing it are still defining it as we go along. No two purple teams are the same. No two purple teamers are the same. So unfortunately, there is no one right answer. There is no one way to do purple teaming properly. There's no CIS benchmark. There's no gold standard. All the answers are the correct ones. Again, it's highly customized. It's context driven. You just have to talk to your stakeholders and figure out what's going to work for your org, beta test that, process improvement, continue on from there. But the best way to start purple teaming is just to start. Just do it, like Nike, just do it. One of the roles that a purple team can play, if you did implement red team operations first, and you're thinking of implementing purple team operations as an after action, it plays a really good follow-up to red team operations. So let's say, you have some CTI, you develop a red team operation, they execute their kill chain, they write the report, you deliver it to all the stakeholders. Take those findings, take what's repeatable, take the actions that they did that you can continue to repeat and aren't mitigated on, put those in a purple team exercise, bring in detection engineering, bring in CTI, bring in remediation teams, and identify, again, if we can't block this, can we alert on it? If we alerted on this, would you know what you're looking at? Would you know who to call? Would you know what to do? And just see if you can put more controls on top of those things. And then as a follow-up metric to the red team op, you can say we came out with 14 findings, 7 were wide open. Of those 7, we got another 5 actively mitigated in a follow-up purple team exercise. Now our only inherent residual risk after that red team op is 2 TTPs. We recommend exploring those with a new security solution next quarter. That is honestly value you bring to more than just technical departments. Also, the us versus them mentality from red and blue teams. Stop it. One of the best intangible benefits you will get from purple teaming is that this will stop. You'll start to see each other as allies. You'll start to understand that we are not simply here to make you look bad. We're not here to punctuate your failures. We're also not here to berate you on why a system is the way it is or why a control is lacking. We don't care why it's lacking. We don't care if you inherited it from someone else. We don't care if you were here when it was stood up. We don't care if you've missed 6 patch management configurations because Tom was out on maternity leave. We don't care. What we care about is we're all on the same side. We just want the org to be secure. We all lose our jobs if the org gets breached and has to fold because we can't pay the fees. So purple teaming does help address that us versus them mentality. And that is one of my favorite parts is when you're a go-to, when blue teamers say, hey, we think this is a problem and no one believes us. Do you think you can address this in the next operation? Like, oh yeah, I got you. I'll make that a big problem for everybody. And it's one of those things where you become an ally. Lastly, I have a lot of people coming to me saying they want to get into purple teaming, but they're currently in an infrastructure or a dev background. So in case you're not aware, those are the yellow teamers. Yellow teamers are considered the builders. They're your infrastructure people, your pipeline people, your DevSecOps design people, and they want to get into purple teaming. And I'm like, really what you want is you just want to get into collaborative security. The end all be all of collaborative security is not necessarily on a purple team. If you come from a builder team and you want to start getting involved with collaborative security, that for you might look like an orange team, new terms, where you work with the red teamers and they say how they hacked your code, how they got into your API, how they enumerated certain things, found secrets, whatever. And they can tell you how they own your code and they can help you learn how to secure it. Or green teams, you can work with the defenders who will help you implement DevSecOps, better practices, sanitize code, things like that. So you don't need to be on a purple team in order to do collaborative security, because the truth is, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, another new term, a white team, which is something MITRE recently implemented, I almost went and did that for them, is when all of the security colors work together, right? White is the combination of all the colors. So please don't just think purple team is your only avenue into collaborative security. You don't need to be a red teamer. You don't need to be a blue teamer. You can be pretty much any background from any part of the org, and you can still do collaborative security. And we are here and happy to help you get there.